Young people, have you ever felt that your voice doesn't matter? That no one listens when you speak? I too have seen moments when the powerful tried to silence truth, when justice was denied, and I know how deeply that pain touches the heart of every young Pakistani. This speech is about why your voice matters today more than ever, why it is the youth who will stand at the front lines for Khan's release, and how together we can turn frustration into action and action into real change. The power of youth voice cannot be silenced, yet the problem today is that many young people feel their voice is insignificant in the larger struggle of justice. They think that no matter how much they raise their concerns, the system is too rigid, too corrupt, too powerful to listen to them. This sense of helplessness creates silence, and silence is the greatest enemy of justice. When young people remain quiet, when they feel their words don't carry weight, then those in power believe they can continue their injustices without accountability. This is exactly the problem we face when it comes to Khan's unjust imprisonment. The voices of millions who believe in fairness and democracy are being deliberately ignored, and the youth, who should be the loudest force, often hesitate because they feel their single voice won't bring change. The solution to this problem lies in realizing that no voice is too small when it joins a collective chorus. When one young person speaks, it may be overlooked, but when thousands of young people speak together with unity, the world has no choice but to listen. Power does not lie only in authority or institutions. Real power lies in people, and among people, it is always the youth who ignite revolutions. The key is to break the illusion of powerlessness and understand that speaking up, even if it feels small, is part of a much larger chain reaction. The solution is courage, discipline, and unity in raising your voice. For every word you speak plants a seed that grows into a movement. Look at history for proof of this. The independence of nations was never handed down by rulers. It was demanded by the people, often led by the young. The Pakistan movement itself was carried on the shoulders of young students who spread the message, who refused to accept a future without freedom, and who organized tirelessly to make their voices echo across the subcontinent. Even more recently, look at movements across the world where regimes fell, not because they were ready to give up, but because the youth rose up together, breaking the silence and demanding justice. The Arab Spring, student movements in Europe, and struggles against apartheid all show that youth voice is the turning point of history. In our own struggle for Khan's release, imagine the difference when young Pakistanis everywhere decide that their silence will no longer be an option. A single student raising their voice in a classroom, a group of friends discussing justice on social media, a rally where young faces dominate the crowd, all of these become ripples that join into waves. And waves, once formed, cannot be stopped. Authorities may try to intimidate, to silence, to spread fear, but no government, no power, no dictator in history has ever been able to silence the unified voice of the youth forever. The solution lies in collective action, where your small act of courage connects with thousands of others and becomes unstoppable. Think of it this way: when a young person decides to remain silent out of fear or hopelessness, they are unknowingly strengthening the hand of oppression. But when they speak, they weaken the grip of injustice. Every chant, every slogan, every post, every conversation is part of this larger battle for freedom. And in this moment of trial, when Khan represents not just a man, but the dream of a just Pakistan, the youth's refusal to be silenced becomes the greatest weapon of all. Injustice against one leader is injustice against the nation. And the problem we are facing today is not limited to Khan as an individual, but to the entire principle of justice itself. When a leader who has dedicated his life to serving the people is unjustly imprisoned, it sends a dangerous message to the whole country that truth, honesty, and courage have no place in politics. It creates an environment of fear where speaking the truth can land you behind bars, where challenging the corrupt elite can destroy your future, and where fairness is no longer the foundation of society. The problem is that such injustice not only silences one man, but also discourages millions of citizens, especially the youth, from believing that their struggle for a better Pakistan will ever be rewarded. If the system can crush the most popular leader of the nation, then what chance does an ordinary young person have to fight for his rights? This feeling of helplessness and betrayal weakens the entire spirit of the people and shakes their faith in democracy. The solution lies in recognizing that injustice against one leader must not be treated as his personal battle, but as a national cause. When we see Khan in prison, we must not think it is only Khan's fight. We must realize that it is our collective fight for the soul of Pakistan. The solution is for every young person to rise above fear and apathy and to unite under the principle that justice denied to one is justice denied to all. It is not enough to feel sympathy or anger. Action is required. This action comes in the form of raising awareness, spreading truth, standing together peacefully but firmly, and refusing to normalize injustice. The youth must understand that defending Khan is not about saving a man, but about saving the future of the entire nation. If we allow injustice to win once, it will repeat itself again and again, crushing every hope of progress. But if we stand united and resist, we not only protect Khan, but also strengthen the very foundation of justice for generations to come. History gives us clear examples of how injustice against one leader became the defining cause for entire nations. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, and the system thought they had silenced him forever. Yet, the people of South Africa knew that his imprisonment was not about one man, but about the dignity of their entire nation. The youth of South Africa refused to let injustice stand, and their relentless struggle eventually turned Mandela from a prisoner into a symbol of freedom for the world. Similarly, in our own history, Quaid, Azam faced immense opposition, attacks, and attempts to discredit him. But the people understood that any attack on his leadership was an attack on their dream of Pakistan itself. They rallied around him, stood with him, and in the end, the truth prevailed. In today's Pakistan, the example is right before us. Khan is not behind bars because of any crime. He is there because he dared to challenge the corrupt system and give voice to the common man. His imprisonment is a reflection of the fear that the powerful feel when confronted with truth and justice. Now the responsibility falls on the shoulders of the youth to respond. If young people step back thinking this is Khan's problem alone, then injustice will spread to every corner of society. But if the youth rise together, if they take his struggle as their own, if they make their voices so loud that they cannot be ignored, then his release will not only be possible, but inevitable. This is how nations are changed. When the youth see injustice and declare with one voice that enough is enough. History shows that real change always begins with young people. Yet the problem today is that many of our youth have been made to believe that they are powerless spectators in the political and social life of Pakistan. They see the older generation controlling power, the corrupt elite making decisions, and the institutions bending to the will of the few. And they feel that their voice, their energy, their ideas do not matter. This creates a dangerous mindset of disengagement where young people withdraw into silence, entertainment, or personal survival rather than stepping into the role history has always assigned them. The drivers of change. The problem is not that the youth lack strength. The problem is that they have been convinced that their strength does not count. When millions of young people start believing this lie, society stagnates, injustice deepens, and the nation loses the very force that could bring transformation. The solution lies in awakening the youth to the reality of their historic power. Real change has never come from the established elite. It has always come from the restless energy of young minds and hearts that refuse to accept the world as it is and instead demand the world as it should be. The solution is for young people to stop underestimating themselves and to start seeing their role as leaders of tomorrow and defenders of justice today. This requires courage, discipline, and vision. It requires young people to speak, organize, and mobilize not only for their own interests, but for the collective future of the nation. When they realize that every movement, every revolution, every moment of progress in history began with youth rising against impossible odds, they will no longer see themselves as powerless. They will see themselves as the spark that ignites the fire of transformation. Examples from history make this truth undeniable. The independence of Pakistan itself was not only the dream of Quaid-e-Azam, but also the relentless effort of young Muslims across the subcontinent. Students spread the message, mobilized communities, and gave the movement the strength it needed to succeed. Without their energy and commitment, the dream of Pakistan would have remained just a dream. Similarly, when you look at the civil rights movement in America, it was young people, students, and youth leaders who marched, organized sit-ins, and gave their voices to the call for equality. They were not wealthy, they were not powerful, but they had belief, courage, and unity, and they changed the direction of their society. Even in more recent times, we see how young people have been the decisive force in bringing down oppressive systems. In Eastern Europe, student movements stood at the front lines of the struggle against communist regimes, their voices echoing so loudly that no dictatorship could contain them. And in our own history, during times of political crisis, it has always been the youth who filled the streets, who raised their voices for justice, and who refused to let the powerful dictate the nation's destiny. Today, in the struggle for Khan's release, the same pattern repeats itself. The older generation may feel tired, hopeless, or afraid, but it is the youth who hold the key. If young Pakistanis decide that enough is enough, if they rise together to say that injustice will not be tolerated, then the tide of history will shift once more. A young student posting the truth online, a group of friends organizing peaceful awareness campaigns, or thousands marching together for justice. All of this is part of the unstoppable energy of youth. Once awakened, this energy cannot be contained by prisons, censorship, or threats. The real solution, therefore, is not waiting for others to act, but for the youth themselves to step into their rightful role as the makers of history. Unity and discipline are the greatest weapons of the youth. Yet the problem today is that young people are often divided and distracted. They are split along lines of political party, social class, language, or region, and instead of channeling their collective energy toward a common goal, they waste it competing against each other or getting lost in trivial debates. This disunity weakens the force of the youth and makes them easy to manipulate by those in power who thrive on keeping the people divided. On top of this, the lack of discipline in movements often leads to chaos, where passion is high but direction is missing. Without unity and discipline, the voice of the youth becomes a scattered noise rather than a powerful roar. This problem is exactly what the enemies of justice want: a divided, undisciplined youth that poses no real challenge to the status quo. The solution lies in understanding that unity and discipline transform ordinary youth into an extraordinary force. Unity means standing together for a greater cause, putting aside personal differences and smaller arguments in order to fight for justice and truth. Discipline means channeling passion into purposeful action, staying organized, and resisting provocations that can derail the struggle. When youth learn to combine unity with discipline, they become unstoppable. No amount of propaganda can confuse them, no threats can silence them, and no injustice can outlast their determination. The solution is for young people to remember that they are not fighting as individuals, but as one body, one movement, one voice for the future of Pakistan. This requires sacrifice, patience, and the ability to put the nation's interest above personal ego. Examples from history clearly show how unity and discipline shaped the destiny of nations. The Pakistan movement under Quaid Azam was not successful because individuals acted on their own, but because millions came together with a single voice, guided by discipline and clarity of purpose. The youth of that era did not allow their differences to divide them. Instead, they united under the dream of a free homeland and followed the disciplined leadership that directed their passion into results. Similarly, when you look at global struggles, such as Gandhi's movement in India, unity and discipline were the defining features. Thousands of young people chose nonviolent discipline over chaos, and that patience and unity shook the foundations of colonial power. Even modern movements show us this truth. In countries where youth revolutions brought down authoritarian regimes, the ones that succeeded were not necessarily the largest in number, but the most united and disciplined. When people came together as one voice, refusing to break ranks despite intimidation, they achieved results that once seemed impossible. The Arab Spring, Eastern Europe's democratic revolutions, and even anti-apartheid struggles all depended on youth understanding the strength that unity and discipline give. In our struggle for Khan's release, this lesson is more important than ever. If young Pakistanis allow themselves to be divided by political propaganda, by sectarianism, by fear, then injustice will continue unchallenged. But if they come together with one voice, if they show discipline in their protests, in their campaigns, and in their actions, then no force can stand against them. Imagine thousands of young people not acting in chaos, but moving with purpose, raising the same slogans, carrying the same message, and showing the same resolve. That unity sends a message to the world that the youth of Pakistan are not distracted, not divided, and not afraid. Discipline ensures that their movement cannot be painted as destructive or lawless, but as a noble and powerful demand for justice. When unity and discipline come together, they become the greatest weapon of the youth, a weapon stronger than any jail, stronger than any barrier, and stronger than any attempt to silence their voice. Khan's struggle is not for himself, but for the future of Pakistan. And the problem we face today is that many people, especially the youth, misunderstand this reality. They see his imprisonment as a personal political battle, a clash between leaders, or a fight for power, when in truth it is about much more. The problem is that when people reduce Khan's struggle to politics, they fail to recognize that he has sacrificed his freedom, his comfort, and his personal life not for his own gain, but for the principles of justice, sovereignty, and dignity for every Pakistani. This misunderstanding leads to apathy, where some think his release or his struggle makes no difference to their lives, when in fact it defines the very quality of life and freedom they will have in the future. If the fight is seen as only Khan's personal issue, then many step aside, leaving the burden on his shoulders alone. And this weakens the collective strength required to overcome injustice. The solutions is for the youth to understand that Khan's struggle represents their own struggle for just Pakistan, for a system where merit, fairness, and opportunity define the future rather than corruption, privilege, and oppression. His sacrifice is not about a seat of power, but about creating a nation where every young person has the chance to thrive without being crushed by the weight of injustice. The solution lies in connecting his personal sacrifice to the collective destiny of the people. When young Pakistanis realize that his fight is a symbol of their own dreams and rights, they will no longer remain indifferent. Instead, they will rise because they will see that supporting Khan is not about supporting a man, but about defending the vision of Pakistan that was promised at its creation. It is about ensuring that the youth inherit a country where truth stands taller than lies and justice is stronger than oppression. History gives us clear examples of leaders who sacrificed themselves for the future of their people. Nelson Mandela did not endure decades in prison for his own comfort. He did it so that generations of South Africans could live free from apartheid. His imprisonment became the symbol of their oppression, but also the symbol of their hope, because the people knew he was not suffering for himself but for them. Similarly, in our own history, Quaid-e Azam was not fighting for personal power, but for the dream of Pakistan, where Muslims could live with dignity and freedom. He carried the burden of that struggle until his health broke down, but his sacrifice gave birth to an entire nation. Khan's example is no different. He could have chosen the easy path to compromise, to remain silent, to live a comfortable life away from the pressures of politics. But instead, he chose to stand for truth and to challenge the powerful who were robbing the people of their rights. His imprisonment is proof of his refusal to bow down, proof that he places Pakistan's future above his own comfort. For the youth, this should be a source of inspiration, not despair. When they look at Khan behind bars, they must not see a defeated man, but a symbol of resistance. Someone who has given up his personal freedom so that the youth may live in a freer, fairer Pakistan. The solution, therefore, is for the youth to align themselves with this vision, to take his struggle as their own, and to recognize that their silence weakens not him but their own future. When young people stand with him, they are standing for their right to a nation where justice is real, where opportunity is fair, and where dignity is protected. His struggle is the mirror of their struggle, and his sacrifices is the blueprint of their future. Only by seeing beyond the individual and embracing the collective meaning of his fight can the youth ensure that his sacrifice leads to the Pakistan they all dream of. Every young voice raised today becomes the foundation of tomorrow's freedom. Yet the problem is that many young people underestimate the impact of their own voice. They believe that unless they are famous, powerful, or part of a massive movement, their single contribution does not matter. This way of thinking weakens the entire struggle because it convinces individuals to stay silent, waiting for someone else to take the first step. The problem grows larger when fear, propaganda, and hopelessness are added, making the youth feel that speaking up is risky or useless. In such an environment, silence spreads like a disease, and silence is exactly what sustains injustice. Every time a young person chooses not to speak, the chains of oppression tighten around the nation. The tragedy is that many do not realize that the silence of the majority is what gives the oppressors their strength. The solution lies in showing the youth that their voice, no matter how small it seems, carries weight when added to the chorus of thousands of others. A single spark can ignite a fire, and a single word can inspire courage in others. When one young person speaks, it gives another the strength to do the same. And soon a chain reaction begins. The solution is for the youth to embrace their responsibility, to speak with courage and consistency, whether it is in classrooms, communities, social media platforms, or public gatherings. Every time they speak the truth, they weaken the grip of lies. Every time they stand up for justice, they inspire others to stand as well. The future of Pakistan depends not on a few leaders alone, but on whether the millions of young voices rise together to demand freedom, fairness, and dignity. Examples throughout history show how the voices of youth built the foundation of freedom for nations. In the Pakistan movement, it was not only the vision of Quaid Azam, but also the countless voices of young Muslims across the subcontinent that created momentum. Students distributed pamphlets, held meetings, and carried the message of independence into every corner. Their voices multiplied into a movement so powerful that no colonial power could suppress it. In the American civil rights movement, it was often young students who staged sit-ins at segregated restaurants, who marched alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and who shouted for justice even when it meant risking arrest. Their voices, once dismissed as small, became the building blocks of a new society. Even in recent times, we can see how young voices have shaped freedom. The fall of oppressive regimes in Eastern Europe was not the result of one leader alone, but of countless students and young activists who raised their voices in unison. In South Africa, it was the voice of youth in Soweto protesting against injustice that shook the world's conscience and gave strength to the larger anti-apartheid struggle. Each of these movements proves the same truth. When youth raise their voices, history bends in their favor. In today's Pakistan, the same principle applies. The fight for Khan's release and for the future of justice in this country will not be decided by silence, but by the courage of young people willing to speak. Imagine a student posting the truth online, another standing in a peaceful protest, another organizing awareness in their community. Each of these may feel small on their own, but together they form the unbreakable foundation of freedom. No prison walls can contain a nation whose youth refuse to be silenced. No propaganda can drown out the sound of millions of young voices speaking together for justice. The solution is for every young person to realize that their silence strengthens injustice, but their voice, no matter how small, becomes part of the powerful symphony of freedom that will define Pakistan's future. My young brothers and sisters, today we reminded ourselves of 6 truths: that the youth's voice can never be silenced, that injustice against one leader is injustice against the whole nation, that real change always begins with young people, that unity and discipline are the strongest weapons we hold, that Khan's struggle is not for himself, but for the future of Pakistan, and that every single young voice raised today becomes the foundation of tomorrow's freedom. If these words touched your heart, then I ask you, don't just listen, act. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments, because your engagement is itself a form of resistance and a way to strengthen this movement. And in the next video, I will take you deeper into how youth can transform frustration into organized action, step by step, so that your voice doesn't just echo, it creates lasting change.